Welcome to the Noble Insights podcast. I am just excited today that I get a chance to have Tori Sullivan on the podcast with me today. Tori is a founder of a new company that's actually doing something very innovative in her space. So, Tori, let's tell us about BarnWiz.
Josh, thank you so much for having me. I couldn't be more excited to be here. BarnWiz is truly an innovation for the horse industry. It was birthed out of my own frustration of being a horse owner and struggling to find a place for my horse.
Right?
I came out from Reno, Nevada to the East Coast, Bethesda, Maryland, to work right out of college. I thought, this is going to be easy. It's the horse capital of the whole world, practically on the East Coast. So it'll surely be easy. And I struggled for years. So BarnWiz is truly a matchmaker for the industry. I'll say that. It's a SaaS platform for professionals so that they can create a listing like Airbnb, offer their services with photos and pricing and the listed amenities that they offer, and then they create a profile, much like LinkedIn, only we will add in the future professional credentials from associations because the industry really requires associations to participate in major competitions in order for, the Olympics and for you to get points to move up in the industry for ratings. And so I believe that there's a good opportunity to showcase a professional's credentials, not just from what they enter, but also what the industry has supported. And so we have a native app, iOS and Android. People come into the app, they all create a profile, a rider profile, a horse profile, or
Right.
a minor profile. Because if you're a minor, we have to really protect minors in the industry, and we wanted to make sure that they're represented by their age and that their parents are monitoring everything that goes on with messaging and with whom they're interacting. Create a profile, search for a professional. We're just now adding the features of a calendar for the professional so that they can actually book a service of a lesson or boarding or other services through the app, which will launch next year.
All right, that's fascinating.
There's been off and on some directories, some lists.
Yeah,
Certainly the lists are existing, but they tell you nothing. They don't show a
yeah.
picture. They don't even say if the professional has availability or not, or what their interest level is in supporting the industry. If you are a Western riding professional, you don't want to teach English methods of riding, you know, overall. If
Mhm.
you have a grouping of lesson horses, you really want to teach people that are trying to learn how to ride. There's really lessons I've learned. I created a directory to begin with,
Mhm.
and I launched that in 2018. And I learned in that process, people tell you when you create a business, you learn from your customers everything you need to know in a PhD every 5 years. That's my mother's favorite lesson. And they've had their own business for 45 years, and they really do help
Wow.
me learn a lot about this. Professionals on my directory really taught me that we needed to match and we needed a better way to match, and that just saying that they had availability or listing on social media was not enough. It's a real guesswork project to figure out if that's the right fit. And if it happens to be the right fit, I just swear you're lucky because
Mm.
99% of the time you're missing and you keep searching and you keep searching. And so this is really meant to be a platform to help the industry come together. But I also believe it will be a way for the industry to grow because opportunities will come out. There are barns all over the country and people willing to teach and help you at least come to the barn, learn about a horse. And I just want to be able to spread that information more quickly through the industry and help connect people.
That's fascinating. I mean, there's so many questions that are popping in my head on what you're saying. So when I think about like the equestrian industry, I know nothing about it. I know my mom rode when she was a girl, and we never really had horses though when I was around. And so I don't know the industry, but I have a friend and his daughter rides, and it's expensive, like so expensive. So I was kind of thought of riding as it's a very elite type of a sport. So I thought this kind of your tool was really aligning around that type of clientele to be able to find information and boarding and other things they need. But it sounds like
Mhm.
what you just said at the end is like, no, we're actually trying to open up riding to a whole new group of people. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that the equestrian industry is the largest sport industry in the entire United
Oh,
States.
amazing.
The economic
Okay.
impact is $177 billion. And just to put that in
Wow.
perspective, NASCAR's economic impact is $158 billion. And combining football, baseball, basketball, hockey, and soccer together combined make an economic impact of $114 billion. It literally is a sport that is not advertised in the way that other sports are. Depends on whom you're speaking with to understand the industry. And I call it the shadow work of the industry is, oh, well, that's just an expensive sport. Well, if you really look at the price of playing golf or having a boat, there's lots of sports that cost money, even skiing, like you can have a sport that's expensive, but it takes a real passion, I think, to be in this industry. You're taking care of another being, an animal. Horses are very unique in their spirituality and how they
Mhm.
connect with a human. And they're really using so many horses for therapeutic modalities because of this value in them. They
It's
have a heart
incredible.
that's 5 times bigger than ours, and they
Really.
have an aura that can be seen 5 times further than we can see when we see an aura. Danger coming towards them because they are fear-based animals.
Hmm.
Dogs and anything that's a predator is going to be after them, and they have to always be aware. And they speak very much, in that nonverbal body language with a twitch of an ear or a eye that raises. There's these little, a muscle twitch. There's little things, a tail wisp. There's something that they will do that is a sign of uncomfortable. I'm not sure. I'm checking it out. And I think the misunderstanding of horses is really what keeps people away from being closer and understanding and participating in the sport.
So then you grew up with horses then, right? From earliest memories?
I grew up out west in Reno, Nevada. My dad's second cousin was in Great Britain and was in an eventing championship in the 70s. She ended up placing first in her sport for a Great Britain's championship for eventing. It was right before
Sure.
like a tryout basically for the Olympics. And so her mother they were just deep into horses and started importing horses for sport because at that time we didn't have horses being raised within the States. Through the
Yeah.
80s and 90s, my family was raising quarter horses and then moved to Hanoverians, which is a warm blood breed for English sport.
Hmm.
Anything you see in the Olympics, eventing, dressage, jumping, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so I grew up with my grandmother bred, 2 to 4, I would say, horses a year. Small farm, but we had a barn. Times that we had boarders, times that we boarded at other places. Off and on, I was a working student all through high school for an athlete that was trying to get on the Olympic eventing team in the States. And so I really was very active riding. I did a lot of dressage out west. Eventing is not as popular in the modalities that it is out east. And so we had an event, but it was like twice a year. Here, it's every other weekend you can go to an event. But anyways, we had some different activities that we did, and I was a young rider champion in dressage in middle school and just kept riding, kept riding. And of course, me and every other 14-year-old that rides says, maybe I want to be a vet or maybe I want to work in this industry. But fortunately, it wasn't really my calling. And I had a great family that really steered me towards healthcare. And I'm grateful that I did that because I spent my career modernizing hospitals from paper to electronic medical records. And so that was a real process in working with software technologies that were new and advanced. And so Y2K was a big deal for us. And then I ended up being so involved in modernizing healthcare that I wrote a book and led the industry effort towards modernizing the nomenclature that we used for claims adjudication, which was called ICD 10. It was the 10th version of the International Classification of Diseases. The World Health Organization at the time was using it, and the US was behind. So this was a big deal for us to modernize to this layout. And I felt very strongly that we had to do this in order to have world understanding of diseases. How could we have two different tracking systems? And so
Yeah.
myself and two other coding experts wrote a project management guide because in early 2000s hospitals didn't have PMPs that were certified. They just had people that were
Yeah.
running projects. And so I didn't feel that they could have, if I wrote a book about how to use Microsoft Project, probably nobody would read it. So I wrote a book with a CD drive that had these Excel files on how to run a project that, average people that were working in the hospital could use. And so I feel like that really set me up to understand how to normalize organizations. And that I feel is a very strong background to what I'm trying to do in the horse industry is sort of
Mhm.
make a normalization of what's available to others.
So you come from that background of really building things and coding things and driving projects. You have this deep history of working with horses and training and learning how to ride and being in that environment. So this is kind of a marriage of those two things in your life. Now, did you do your own coding on BarnWiz?
I'm not a software engineer. I
Oh, you're
really
not? Okay.
always worked as a project manager or a team lead. And so I hired engineers
Okay.
and I was fortunate enough to find software designer that I ended up finding on a platform that you would look for, Gun.io, that you would look for
Yeah.
engineers. And we
Yeah.
were working with him to mock up what we wanted to change from the directory. And we kept interviewing engineers and talking to groups. And I noticed when I was working with, anybody in a larger organization, it was just a one-off project. There was no
Hmm.
passion, there was no connection to the project. And I knew this is going to have to be something that people are passionate about
Right.
because that comes out in their work. And I really feel strongly about teams that come together over a project that they're all individually passionate about tend to be
Mhm.
more successful. I've seen it in all types of projects that I've run for 20 some years.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening is this designer had a grouping of friends that was an iOS engineer, an Android engineer, and backend engineers that he had worked with in his past through various projects and sometimes together. And so I cobbled all of them back together to run this project. And,
Hmm.
this I just knew right away when you get a team of people that love each other and admire each other and know each other personally and want to work together, that's something special. And it's hard to manufacture.
Sure.
And so I was very excited to work with them. And yeah, they're an awesome team. These are the kind of people that want to be proud of what they've built. They're all senior engineers. And I will just say for every other founder out there, just listen to your gut. I have had so many people tell me I did this wrong. I should have just hired a company. It would have been so much easier. It would have been so much cheaper. It would have been this, that, and whatever. And I
Yeah.
just had to say, it is my way. And I listen to others and I then make a decision. And I think that we looked at the data from our directory, we looked at how people were coming to our directory, and we made a decision as a group, as a team, what should we build that would be most beneficial. And I was in a project, an accelerator program in Virginia. They have what's called ICAP. It's Innovation of Commercialization Application Program.
Oh, nice.
And that program really taught us you have to go to the customer to validate your idea. You might have
Mhm.
an idea, but it's probably a good chance that it's wrong and that the customer will help educate you on what they really want. just started interviewing hundreds of people, literally, with validating different ideas that I had. And it just kept coming back to, we need this so bad. And then we launched our directory, learned lessons about the phone rang with professionals, but wasn't always the right match. And they didn't love
Sure.
that. And when, they were full, they didn't want to advertise anymore. Little nuggets of, information that you learn when you put something out there. But I really encourage people to, build, launch, learn, relaunch. Just, it's a cycle and you got to keep doing it.
So your project management background really drove the design and the delivery of this, and you work with other people to help you build it out. So you got it
Yeah.
built, and then how do you go to market with something like this?
I think that first of all, you have to build something people want. The way that
Hmm.
we go to market is we start small with our area. And I thought that was important to do in order to get synergy in social media, emails, horse shows, just being involved in the industry and really finding those key users to start with that really help us build in a meaningful way. And then the opportunity to partner with major associations nationwide to pull in their data and to help showcase the promotion of the horses and the promotion of the riders, I think will help spread the word along with key people within the industry that are very
Hmm.
key to name recognition and personality. I think will also be another factor.
Yeah, right. Okay. And then how do you commercialize something like this? Like, how do you charge? Who pays? Like, what's the business model behind something like BarnWiz?
Yeah. So professionals pay a monthly subscription fee to be on our platform. You will have a variant of their price depending on where they want to be in the platform as far as ranking and what support they need. But let's just say on average, they will spend about $100 per month to be
Okay.
in the SaaS fully built platform.
They're going to get a multiple of that from investing in that. That's going to pay off tremendously for them.
Yeah, I really consider it's basically a lesson for the professional a month.
One
And what
lesson.
that does
Okay.
for
Yeah.
them, yeah, I mean,
Makes sense.
lessons range in price too, but let's even two lessons. But the point is that it frees up the professional to make more revenue. And
Hmm.
I then we charge anybody that has purchased something through the platform. So when they purchase a lesson, when they purchase a trailering, a farrier, whatever they're buying through the platform will have a transaction fee price
Okay.
that's 6% add-on to that price.
So you're actually handling all the payment as well through the app.
We do.
You're
Yeah.
not just doing the matching, but you're actually doing the transaction.
Right. And
So like an Uber, for example, if I could just use
mhm.
that
Yes.
example, like I don't pay, I find a cab, but I pay through Uber. Same with
Yeah.
this. I
Exactly.
find
Exactly.
an instructor and I pay, and then it's all handled off online like that.
Right. And the
Got
reason
it.
that I really think that's important is one, to pay out the professionals on a more regular basis than what they have today of a monthly invoice and a monthly receipt. And so I
Okay.
think more regular payments of when they actually teach a lesson, they get paid for the lesson. When they, trailer a
Okay.
horse, they get paid for that. So they'll have a more regular revenue stream. But also with technology, and I will say with the advancements of AI, there's a lot of blessings that come from reviewing data sets and being able to make recommendations very quickly. And so with the help of AI, we'll be able to forecast profitability and help them understand what can they do to hit profitability versus struggling year over year. And it comes from simple things like lesson horse utilization and trends of camps or other revenue streams.
So you're partnering a bit with the instructors or the service providers. You're actually helping them grow their business, showing them better utilization, and getting more margin out of what they do.
Right. My philosophy
Yeah.
really is if we don't help these businesses
Right.
stabilize and grow, our industry will never grow. That's sort
Yeah.
of the core is we need professionals that are profitable and when they grow, the whole industry grows. And it's the model every small business needs. I think it's really important to help them come up with a marketing tool that's very simple, that speaks clearly and in detail of what they offer so that people can easily understand what they're trying to buy in order to be matched and process that actual payment.
So you could be literally the go-to app for anyone in the equestrian business. They'll just like,
Yeah.
we know we can come to BarnWiz, and then that's how we can launch our business essentially.
That's the
There,
idea is to try to, what do you need? App for
yeah,
the industry.
you're like the Shopify for this industry
Mhm.
almost.
Right.
All
Right.
the transactions, everything, you're setting up your own business. This is fascinating. I'm just kind of curious, did this really come as a aha moment for you, or was this really a slow burn? Like you started just kind of putting these pieces together, or was there like a moment you're like, I got to do this?
I will say it's definitely a slow burn. I mean, there are those moments, sure, that you
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
this has to change. The catapults for me were I knew that there needed to be a technology. I mean, just for example, I founded the company in 2014. I
Okay.
launched a directory in 2015 that was on a shared platform and it got hacked. If you remember that time in the world, it was really nuts for internet hacking. And anyway, it was a shared platform. It had zero support. The whole platform crashed
Sure.
down in misery. And so we rebuilt it. And even in that cycle of time of launching it and then rebuilding it, there were these aha moments of experiences that I kept having. I had two horses at the time. I boarded one retired horse at a farm that everybody
Mm,
told me around, this will be a great farm for you. They'll take good care of her. Don't worry about it. And at the
yeah.
time, I was traveling extensively for my work. And when I was home, I'd be riding my other horse because I would be competing her. And so it just was a very busy time in my life. And I will say, when I went to the barn to see the retired horse, it was maybe every other week. It wasn't like every day I would
Mhm.
see her. And I remember it was a winter day and I went to visit her and I took off her blanket to brush her. And she was so emaciated that you could see every single bone in her ribs and her spine and her neck. And it was the most heartbreaking, unbelievable thing I've ever seen. And what
Man.
immediately I had boarded with a friend and her mare was exactly the same. And I realized we had to get her off the property very quickly and put her to another barn that could help, feed her and rehab them. Because you can't just feed a starved horse
Sure.
building. But the vets and the police, like nobody would do anything to this professional. She just kept being able to be a professional. And I was so mad about that. I wanted to make a,
Yeah.
18-foot tall sign that says she's horrible and a big star and an arrow to her farm. I was so mad about it. But I thought that's not going to do any good. It's
Yeah.
only going to show people driving down this road how mad I am. And so I thought the problem wasn't that she starved my horse. The problem was why she did that. And what happened is she ran out of money and she needed to make more money. It was winter. And she thought, well, she would just add more horses to the pasture for more income, for
Mhm.
field board, we call it. But the horses that she added were young horses. And those young horses wouldn't let my mare and another mare, the older horses, eat one round bale. They would chase them off. And so while she was trying to make more money, she was, really punishing and sacrificing the horses that she already had. But this is not uncommon, unfortunately, in the industry.
Sure.
People that are professionals struggle at certain times of the year and they will make a decision because they don't really have the foresight in being able to see this is going to come and I need to be prepared, even if they've been in the industry for years. And that was
Mhm.
why I said, we're going to make a directory. But then, in the directory, we realized there's sort of a trend in the summer and in the winter. We call it a shuffle, where people want to be outdoors. And so they bring their horse from an indoor arena to an outdoor, or they want to be in Florida for the winter, or they want to move. And so there's this big movement within the industry, and
Yeah.
professionals want to advertise. But then it sort of settles in as people go back to riding regularly and competing through the summer months. And so then they want to stop advertising. But the problem when you advertise and then, when it's like driving and you put the gas pedal on and then you take the gas pedal off, you get this jerking motion and it leaves a professional with empty stalls because they're not prepared for that activity. And
Right.
many times it happens and they're unexpected. Like, oh, they'll put on Facebook, it's a shock, but we have a stall open. And I'm like, I'm not shocked. That's what happens in this industry. And so I just want to be able to help them understand the bigger business and understand that they need to plan for those shifts and have people that are like on the, backside waiting for an opportunity to board with them. And if we could have a better way of identifying when those times happen and preparing those professionals, I think they will have a more stable business to run, which, of course, every business owner needs stability, and being able to grow because you have profit is exactly what I want for them.
It's amazing. Thank you for that story. I'm so saddened by a horse being starved like that, but it does kind of lend itself to really what the problem is, and maybe what some of these barn owners and farm owners need to help them grow their business as well.
I think you have to come up with a solution. Like you
Yeah.
can talk about problems all day long, but who cares? What matters is what the solution is. How do you fix it? How do you move forward? And
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in your windshield's a heck of a lot bigger than your rear view mirror. You got to just forget about what happened yesterday. You can do nothing about it but
So
move
true.
forward.
I love that. So you've kind of gone here from 0 to 1, right? You've taken these directory ideas and some of the industry problems, and you said, okay, we're going to create this app that's going to serve all these different types of needs and purposes. So now from 1 to 2, how do we scale this? How do we grow it? How do we take over the world from a BarnWiz standpoint? What do you do at this point in your business?
So right now we are finishing our build with the calendar and the booking. I have about 76 professionals that are in this from our directory that haven't yet finished the onboarding to our app. We're working through that list to get them onboarded and prepared. That means getting all their people in their barn, get a horse profile set up, get a rider profile set up, so that once we
Okay.
do have the calendar released, we have a good grouping of professionals that have their whole barn onboarded and we can start really testing. I want to make
Mhm.
sure that we've listened to them carefully. Of course, we have professionals that are very close to us and work with us in scoping the technology and scoping out the build, and they guide us when we make assumptions that are wrong, which happens more than you think. They really guide us in what we should be doing and how they would prefer that it runs. We've been working with those professionals to build it, and so we'll plan early next year to onboard these professionals and their whole organization, all their clients. They tend to have about 15 stalls, up to 30 clients. And so we really want to get them integrated and
Sure.
familiar with the app before we add them into the functionality. And so we can really hands on support them, make sure we built it right. And then, obviously, then we will scale locally
Mhm.
first to make sure that this region that I can drive to. Technically, I just want to be very, technical about it because I think it's important to start locally and then grow. We'll decide if it's that time of year, if it's better to go south where we can hit the Florida market, or, go north depending on, what time of year really we're ready to scale, and we'll spread west as we can.
Yeah. So really at this point, to go from 76 to 76,000 is kind of a bite at a time, is what you're saying, because you're
I
still
think
ironing out things. You're still making sure onboarding's smooth. You want to make sure we're delivering impeccable service for your 76, and then you're going to go out from there. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's really
Okay.
important to make sure we've built everything accurately first,
Hmm.
and then the sky's the limit. So then work with the associations that we're working to negotiate partnerships with now,
Yep.
and share their information so you can see the history of a horse. And I think that's a key component to how we will grow, is when you look at the history of your thoroughbred that
Mhm.
you bought off the track and it's had four different owners, you're going to know its history of who's had it, what it's done, has it taken lessons, has it been in competitions.
Yeah.
And I really think that will be key to its growth.
Mhm.
And so I think we will shift from really focusing on getting professionals on to then really getting consumers using the
Mhm.
platform.
Yeah. That makes sense a lot. Okay. We were getting some Airbnbs and looking at
Mm-hmm.
them, and we've felt pretty lucky about the ones that we've gotten so far. They've been really nice and have little surprises to them. But I can't imagine getting one and going in and they're like, "Oh, you wanted hot water? Oh yeah, sorry, we don't do that here." And I just can't imagine these circumstances where you really are just like, you're trying to find either boarding or instruction. But you're right, there's such a spectrum of needs and matches and criteria around the style of rider, the type of horse, the background of the horse, where you are in your learning. That all does matter to try to get those matched up perfectly to your
Yeah.
style and your comfort and your price point.
Right.
I really see some exciting things there. So, market, we're going to slow roll that a little bit. What do you think are maybe like the two or three biggest problems right now in your business that you're working on getting solved?
I think what we are trying to solve is get our whole platform built so that we are a true SaaS platform. I think that
Okay.
the problem of just being an advanced directory isn't enough. Like, we really need to
Yeah.
finish our build and be a SaaS platform. And then it will be, you know, literally getting the word out and making sure that we've been able to make the right partnerships, make the right advancements with influencers, etc., so that we can build that voice of what we're doing and our message gets shared. And so we've built the right product. We're tapping into a market that really needs it. Now we just need the advanced support of the social media and the
Sure.
associations around us to help spread that message.
And how do you think AI is going to impact your industry?
I fortunately come from a background of technology, and I
Uh-huh.
worked for IBM and we had the first AI. I think that there's a lot
Take a second.
misinformation.
I remember sitting in, I think in 2010, and I
Hmm.
watched Watson beat one of those guys
Yes,
on
on
Jeopardy.
Jeopardy,
Right? I
right?
watched, and I was at IBM at that time. So,
Yeah,
I was
right,
watching it. I'm
right,
like, oh my gosh, game over. Everybody else lost.
right.
We are on this. And I thought that was kind of funny because the first use cases for AI was like a customer service rep, just taking phone
Yeah,
calls.
yeah,
And then now I don't see IBM in that same conversation.
right.
Anthropic, OpenAI, NVIDIA, Grok,
Yeah,
Microsoft,
yeah,
those are the
yeah.
ones. And we're like, yeah, I remember that. I just thought like everybody else was now playing catch up for the next several decades.
Well,
But
certainly the
it didn't work
technology
out
has
like that.
come a long way. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, other technologies have, emerged, and I think that's great. I really do think, in for how it relates to our industry, I think the advancements that will support the industry are going to be so helpful, not from just a technological perspective.
Please
For
say.
us in particular, it will help us with looking at our apps the same version of each other. It will help us with finding errors faster. So the software itself will be helped and
Hmm.
enhanced by it. Certainly humans did some of that before, but the scale of humans that you need to do that detail work compared to a software engine, it's insanely helpful.
Sure.
So, think like 20% of your staff and you'll see all these layoffs. And it's because there's literally faster ways of doing things
Hmm.
when it comes to testing and software integrations, etc. I think that for other innovations, I think there will be more to come for sensors and for videos that will help, document what, professionals trying to offer, for example. not necessarily from a fake sense, but helping a professional match with, there's been innovations out where a rider is tracked, but they haven't modernized enough to be really accurate. But I think with the advancement of AI, those specific modalities will really improve. And I think that only helps remote teaching of professionals. I think AI will also help, certainly with forecasting and helping to innovate what services could be offered and what people could envision. But I think AI can envision it, plan it out, and tell you how to implement it. And that's such a value to something that can be in a prepared video. Like, hey, how can I improve my business? And the next thing, it looks at your data from 2 years past and it goes, yeah, Tori, you can, I see in the summer you usually do one camp, but now it looks like you have slow time planned this year. Why don't you add a
Yeah.
camp there? And it's going to be their own coach, which I think
Yeah.
is unbelievable.
Fascinating. I need a new contract, or I taught these things in my class today. I just need to summarize that to give me a little punch list I can go give to my student, help them remember everything that we talked
Well,
about today.
even just to say, how much it will help professionals, how to onboard a new professional. Like,
Yeah, good point.
what do they want
Hmm.
to offer? Oh, okay. Answer three, 3 or 4 questions. And here's your list of things that you'll need to set
So
up. And
true.
BarnWiz helps you do 90% of it.
And
So
how
I
how
really look
deep could
at,
you go there, right, Tori? I mean, like, look, let's get you
Mhm.
launched and operating. Let's help you with your marketing. Let's help you with your support. Let's help you with your branding, your storytelling, which I know that's something that's a passion of yours as well. Like how far do you go? Because you could do a lot for your
Yeah.
clients that way.
Yeah, I think I envision that we have a list of a directory of professionals that will come take photos that are
Yeah.
commercial photos, not real estate photos, but who's in your community and how do you want your community to see you? In other words, if you have a dog at your farm, you need to show that that's a dog that is hanging around your farm. If there's cats, if they have chickens, you better show them, or people with a fear of chickens aren't going to want to board with you. There's
No,
things you
that's
need to
right.
show. If you have one outdoor arena, you need to show a horse in it, for example, because
Hmm.
people need to know scale and size. There's some visual things that we really try to help people market. I have a list of professionals that would be
Yeah.
able to run a photo shoot and know what we're looking for and target those clients to support their marketing.
Yeah. Sky's the
And
limit.
then I
I
think we have a
interrupt
list
you.
of lawyers. Or
Yeah.
maybe we don't
Yeah.
have any lawyers. Maybe it's all AI. We'll see. But, I think we do be able to help professionals set up the legal terms of their business. And I think that's something that can easily be made with AI.
Yeah.
Here's the state, here's the county, and I want to
Hmm.
set up this business. Here's all the documentation you need. I mean, that is what AI is super good at.
It's brilliant. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, Tori, I can't thank you enough. This is so fun. You've taught me so much about an industry that I just really know nothing about. And I'm really genuinely excited about what you're going to accomplish and help other people accomplish in their own businesses as well. So well done.
Thank you so much, Josh. And I really look forward to you letting me know when you're settled.
All right.
No,
Well, listen, Tori, thank you again for joining. How do people find out about your company? Is it just go to the App Store and
you
download it?
can go to
Is
the
that the
App
best?
Store. They can download it to get started, create a rider or a horse profile. You can go to follow us on social media. We're on both Facebook and Instagram. And you can also go to our website, www.barnwiz.com. It's
Perfect.
BarnWiz, and it's a simple link.
All right. Thank you so much, Tori.
You too. Take care.